Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. So if you thought that the Christopher Nolan series was done, think again. We are going to count them down. We are going to rank every single Christopher Nolan film. It was so tough for me to make this list. And as you can see, I do have a second voice in the room for this one. He is oh man, this guy, great friend of mine. He is one of the most talented writers, directors, actors that I know. I've gotten the honor and the privilege to work with him a couple of times now. So, yeah, without any further ado, Silas Dunn, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm psyched to be here. Yeah, man. Yeah, as Zack said, I'm a writer director. Do a lot of short films, a lot of DC comic short films. So Nolan specifically, speaks to me, and yeah, and I know you and I have talked often about Nolan. I mean,
Yeah.
I think right down to probably the first time I ever met you, we've talked about Nolan so many times, and yeah, man, I'm stoked to be here.
I'm excited to do just that again with you, my friend.
Oh yeah.
One other question. How hard was this list for you to make?
The low end of the list was easy, but narrowing down my top five was it felt wrong to me. It felt almost like sacrilege. I was like, I can't do this, but and writing the list, I kind of had to flip flop a couple times, and I was like, no, not that one.
Yeah.
But no, man, I'm stoked. I mean, I'm stoked to see what your list looks like, and how ours are similar and how they're different and all that stuff.
Amen, dude. I'm so excited to see how your list pans out. I don't know if it's gonna be like. There's been times where lists have been almost identical, but there's times where lists have been completely different. And
yeah,
those of my viewers that have seen some of these rankings before, you know how this works already. We're gonna count them down. Silas is the guest, so he's gonna go first, and we're gonna go back and forth. But I gotta say, I mean, no disrespect to those other lists that I made. This was probably the toughest one for me personally, just because Nolan's films are all like cinematic platinum as far as I'm concerned. Like, so tough.
dude, yeah.
But before we get right down into it, I already went over the basically the gist of what this is, ranking all 11 of them. And yes, I did say top 11. My other podcasts have been top 10s, but it's an extra film. Why not? We'll just stick it in there, Doug Walker style. So yeah, top 11. Thank you all so much for stopping by once again. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button as hard as you possibly can. Make sure to leave a like also by the end if you like what you see. And Silas also has a YouTube channel. So would you like to do a little plug of that before we get into that?
Yeah. I would assume the link is down there somewhere too.
Yep.
The channel's called Mass Upset Pictures, and it's, it kind of has started as me and a few buddies, Zack being one of them, who are just making films that we love based on characters that we love. So right now we've got a couple out. Go check out Red Hood versus Nightwing. We worked really hard on it, and then at some point in December we'll be dropping the first one that Zack is in. That one's called No Old Soldiers, and I think you guys are gonna love his performance in that. I mean, dude, watching back the footage during editing, I'm just, every time I see you deliver a line, I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, dude, it's so good, man. But yeah, check out our channel. Hey, if you like our stuff, share it. If you don't, that's cool.
Absolutely. Red Hood versus, I almost said Redwood. That's not right.
That would be different. Yeah.
That would be, it's the tree hero from ASDF movie. But yeah, Red Hood versus Nightwing is already out on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out already, definitely do so. The link is down below along with his channel. Go subscribe to him also. He deserves your support. It's a badass flick for sure. And yeah, like he said, I'm appearing in No Old Soldiers. I got the honor of playing the Riddler. It was very, very fun for sure.
Dude, and it's something we've been working towards to get you on board as Riddler for like 5 years at this point.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but
long time coming, man.
Glad we finally got to do it. Like he said, it's going to be dropping in December. So if you want to see me in my elements, aside from being a film critic, I'm also an actor. So definitely check that out when it drops. And I'm sure I'll be touting that all over social media too. But yeah, so without any further ado, let's get into the nice pleasantries. Silas is going to go first. And yeah, this is a tough list, guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. Here we go. Number 11.
I'd say for number 11 for me, it's definitely going to be Insomnia.
Okay.
Insomnia to me, and as hard as this list is, because like you said, all of Nolan's films are just they're cinematically beautiful. To me, I think Insomnia felt a lot like a film that somebody else could have directed. Whereas a lot of Nolan's films, most of Nolan's films are all stuff that like only he could do. It's you would not see Inception from somebody else.
No.
But Insomnia to me is very much like it's. I hate to use the phrase "run of the mill" because it's not. It's a crime mystery at heart, but it's not run of the mill in any fashion. But I think it doesn't showcase Nolan's ability as an author and as a director as much as his other work, and I think that's why it's sitting firmly in the bottom for me.
Mm.
But I still do enjoy Insomnia, and it's not like it's not like I don't like watching the film. It's just it's not Nolan as much as the bigger name films that more household name stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. That's a great point. I have personally Insomnia a little bit higher on my list, and I can talk about why a little bit more once we get there. But
Yeah.
what I will say about it right now is you make a really, really excellent point that I never even thought about, in all honesty. I was rewatching Insomnia over the summer when I actually did the whole Nolan playlist.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like, in depth, like, I mean, I'm going to go in depth for sure, but I have full thoughts on each movie, like, already on a playlist. So I'll leave that down below for you guys also. But Insomnia definitely feels like, dude, it almost feels like, thinking about it, it feels like Scorsese directed it instead of Nolan.
It does, and
Like,
it to me it also feels a lot like Denis Villeneuve, who also is amazing. But
yeah.
Insomnia to me has a lot of parallels to like Prisoners. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and and it's again, it's such a good movie, but I like when Nolan kind of drifts when he moves into the more like we were talking about earlier. He moves into the that all of his scientific knowledge, all of his the fact that the guy has like something like 140 IQ. I mean, he's a genius, and I don't know the exact number, but like he's ridiculously smart, and that comes through in other films more than I think it does in Insomnia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, that's fair for sure. Um, so my number 11, this is actually where I put his first film, Following. This
okay.
is the
Yeah.
this is the only Christopher Nolan film on the Criterion Collection somehow. I think that's blasphemous, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
again, I'm not saying that Following is a terrible film when it's this low on my list. You never forget your first. I mean, this is what skyrocketed Nolan up to superstardom almost. I think, well, there's another film later on that he made right after this that we'll certainly talk about later that certainly
But
catapulted.
Following is certainly the movie that allowed him to make what came next.
Oh yeah, and you honestly really have to respect Nolan for, like, that was a shoestring budget film.
Yeah, what, $10,000 I think?
Yeah. Well, if not even just $10,000, it's like,
Yeah.
certainly a very low number.
Yeah.
Um, and what he was able to accomplish there, he got his personal friends to be actors
Yeah.
also, which
Yeah,
is
I mean he
really,
was a
really
film
cool.
student at the time. It's yeah,
Hmm.
crazy.
I think what makes Following, like, so low on the list for me personally is that I see what Nolan's trying to do. And I mentioned this in my review. I see what he's trying to do with this whole, like, non-linear narrative structure.
Yeah.
He didn't have as good of a grasp on it as another film that we'll talk about later where he mastered the technique, but you could definitely see where he was going. And I definitely respect Nolan, like, in his, ideas.
Yeah.
It's, man, Following is certainly, it's an interesting film for sure.
Yeah, and I think regardless of where it is on either list, I think Following is the good thing to point out about Following is that it's really I mean, it is the start of his journey in general, but I think it's also it's also like you see a lot of themes that and a lot of storytelling devices that he brings up in later films that they kind of get born within Following, whether or not they're, like you said, whether or not he's perfected them yet. But I think in Following they're there, the seeds of them are there, and he kind of uses that to, you know, sprinkle them in as he progressed in his career. And I think that's an important thing to understand about Following, is that while it is absolutely his smallest budget, and also, I mean, what, 96 or something like that, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
98, I don't remember, but
somewhere,
98,
somewhere in
I
that
think.
vicinity. Yeah,
Yeah. but he, it still is Nolan kind of becoming Nolan, for, for all intents and purposes. I think that's what I like about that movie. But yeah.
for sure, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, hot start, Insomnia for Silas, Following for me. Here we go. Number 10.
Number 10 for me is actually going to be Following.
There it is. There
So
it is. Yeah.
yeah,
Who'd have thought
I think that it was a hard choice for me, just purely because of what I was just saying, where it really is Nolan becoming Nolan. But I think purely because he was at the start of his career and because of the smaller budget, he's grown so much that I think even though this was where it started, it's just he's gotten. I mean, almost with every film, he just gets better and better and better. And I think that while we can appreciate absolutely that this is what started his career, and what, like, kind of gave the world the films that he's, subsequently done, it's still, absolutely, the films that came later are, cinematically speaking, miles beyond it, purely because of the experience and the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the lack of experience is probably what puts it at number 10 for me, is just that
Yeah.
it's, yeah, and understandable lack of experience. It's not, that's not anything against Nolan. It's just,
No, of
yeah,
course not. We like. I feel like no matter what our profession is, no matter how long we've been doing it, we're always learning.
yeah,
So,
dude. If you ever read the first script that I wrote, you would probably never speak to me again. It's terrible.
well,
I might have it somewhere. Maybe
yeah.
I'll leak it in 10 years. And
Oh, for sure, for sure. But yeah, no, I've already gotten all my thoughts out about Following for sure. But it is definitely an important building block to an excellent cinematic career for sure.
yeah,
Um, oh, my number 10. People are either gonna really, really despise me for putting this film as low as it is, or they're gonna say, "Understood."
okay, okay,
I put Dunkirk at number 10.
okay.
So
Interesting.
the reason why is because this is kind of similarly to why I put Following as low on my list as it was. Dunkirk, like, I get what Nolan was going for sure. He was creating a very different war film from anything else we've ever seen, like a Saving Private Ryan or even a Hacksaw Ridge, which came out just a year before. This was more about the event, more so than the characters.
Oh yeah,
And I really respect that idea, but it kind of works against the film in a lot of ways because
yeah,
I wasn't as invested in a lot of these characters' stories. Like, I really
exactly.
wanted to be invested in that lead character. I wanted to be invested in what Harry Styles was doing. He was really
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Surprisingly, Harry Styles was awesome. But
yeah,
yeah, Dunkirk, it's visually it's a technical masterpiece.
yeah.
But as a character study and a script, like, overall, I'm not really going to get much, like, emotional investment out of this. I do want these characters to get out of there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a terrible, terrible situation they were in, but it's like
Yeah,
I didn't really get much emotion.
yeah. I think the real emotion only bleeds through in the pure fact that, you know these English people are moving, are these civilians are doing what they can to save their own people, and I think that's really the only place where emotion really shines through fully. And the thing that I love about Dunkirk, like you said, is that it is a war film, but it's not. It is a Nolan war film as opposed to a war film, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like the same themes that we see in all of his films, where it's it's told out of order. He's messing with the linear aspect of storytelling, which I love.
Oh yeah.
And from a storytelling perspective, it might be his most ambitious film, purely because it's such a known genre. It's such a sought after genre. People want
Mm-hmm.
war films, people want World War II films specifically, and he just flipped the entire genre on its head and did something different. And like you said, I think that works for him, and it serves to work against him in certain cases, in that, because we're flipping back and forth so often, and the story is told out of time, and out of order, is that it serves to kind of isolate the characters, as opposed to as opposed to pushing them towards us and having us understand them. I think it kind of puts them on this weird like glass box that we can't really access, like what they're going through, what they're feeling, and it's
Mm-hmm.
more about the spectacle and the event as opposed to the people going through it.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great point, my friend. It's that made me think of something else actually. I think the film's only like an hour 45 minutes long.
It's one of his shortest films for sure.
Yeah, like Interstellar's definitely longer. Tenet is for sure longer. Like,
I think Interstellar might be his longest. Oh no, Dark
well,
Knight Rises.
I don't know. Well, both of them for sure longer than Dunkirk.
Yeah,
But I think for everything that was going on in Dunkirk and that script, you have the Mark Rylance story with the young kid. You have Tom Hardy up in the air, and also
yep.
for the love of God, can Tom Hardy also do a role where he's not wearing a mask? Like,
I was
unless
just about to say that, because I think that film directly followed Dark Knight Rises and then Mad Max. And I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
for like a good chunk of Mad Max, he's got a giant metal thing on his face.
yeah,
Like, geez,
yeah.
Tom Hardy's a good-looking guy. Let him show his face.
Right? Yeah. Like, I mean, Tom Hardy was badass in those fighter planes. But like
Oh,
for everything, my point being, for everything that was going on, I think the film needed to be at least 2.5 hours to like really
yeah,
get like, more
yeah.
of them.
I
Because
can feel that.
yeah, because everything just felt, I get the urgency for sure. It's definitely a very urgent situation. It's an emergency. Get them out of there. But you almost have to have the film be like 2.5 hours if you're gonna, get behind these people. But
Yeah, yeah,
Dunkirk is still a solid film overall.
yeah, yeah. And again, I just want to make it clear, like, there's not a single Nolan film that I don't like,
No.
which is rare. Even Tarantino, like, there are movies of his that there's a couple movies of his that I just don't watch.
Yeah.
I, you know, but there's not a single Nolan film that I will not watch, that I don't like. Definitely ones that I like a lot more, which is the point of this list. But yeah, regardless, anywhere on this list, the movies are solid. They're all good films. They're all, you know, kind of master classes in cinematic storytelling. And I think you don't get that with most directors. You
Not
don't.
at all.
Most directors have at least two or three where I'm like, I can't do it. I can't watch it. But Nolan's they're all entertaining. They're all different. They all push the boundaries of what film can be. And that's what I love about his abilities.
Oh yeah, for sure. And how much trust he places in his audience too is
Oh yeah,
just
yeah.
astounding. Like
Well,
how he like leads them along. It's like we're all puppies being led by a little squeaky toy. It's like,
yeah,
okay, here it is. Come and get
yeah,
it.
and even on the opposite side, how much trust Warner has in him now.
Oh yeah. Oh
I mean,
yeah,
he
for
can
sure.
basically do anything at this point. And they're like, yeah, we'll give you money.
Yeah, and I mean, even the fact that he released Tenet in the year we're living in right now, like Warner Brothers had to have a lot of trust in him, like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Tenet is still in theaters right now as we speak.
Yeah.
So at the time
Yeah.
of recording, so it's like mid-November at the time of recording. But like, I don't know when it's gonna be out of theaters. It's gonna be out on Blu-ray on December 15th. I know that for sure.
Already pre-ordered it, my friend.
Happy late birthday to
Already.
me.
Yeah.
There it is. Anyway, yeah. So here we go. Number 9.
Number 9. Oh, man. Okay. I
This is where it gets
know
good.
I know people are gonna hate me for this.
Oh, here we go.
Number 9 is gonna be The Prestige for me.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay. I have
I
a little bit
think
higher.
yeah. See, I know so many people who are like, dude, The Prestige is probably my favorite Nolan film, or it's like top 3. I like The Prestige a lot. I think it's in the same way that kind of in the same sort of thing that I was saying about Insomnia. It's so different from any other Nolan film, but unlike Insomnia, it is a period piece that I think only could have been told by Nolan.
Yeah.
I think it's. I mean, it's based on a book. I don't know the author's name off the top of my head, but
Oh, I know this. I know this. It's gonna kill me not knowing this. Hold on. I'm gonna look it up. Keep going.
okay. But yeah, so the way that it's told, the way that the story kind of progresses, and just from a director standpoint, it really is a Nolan film. Whereas, which is I think why it's high. It's why it's certainly higher than Insomnia is because it is a Nolan film. Whereas I think Insomnia feels like it could be anything. But Prestige to me, I think sort of the similar thing that I said about Insomnia doesn't showcase Nolan's incredible intellect
Yeah.
as much as the Dark Knight trilogy or Inception or whatever it is. And I think that's the thing for me. And I mean, purely from a rewatchability standpoint, I think I've only seen The Prestige twice.
Really? Okay.
I think so. I've never been like invested enough to go watch it again,
Yeah.
Which I know is probably, I'm sure people are going to hate me.
Oh. Well, wait till you see what my number 9 is. People are really gonna.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So yeah, The Prestige. Like I said, I have it a little bit higher, and I'll get into why later on. But by the way, the author of the novel's name is Christopher Priest.
Okay. Yeah.
Christopher Priest.
I heard he hates the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh man, well he's wrong. He's wrong.
He's absolutely wrong. Absolutely.
I mean, I say people are entitled to their opinions, but that one is just wrong.
He's wrong.
That one is incorrect.
That's it. He's wrong.
Yeah, well, this number 9 might be incorrect in a lot of people's eyes. If people thought they were going to hate me for my Dunkirk choice at number 10,
all right,
you thought you were going to be hated for The Prestige at number 9. I put Interstellar at number 9.
Oh man! Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh god!
I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So to that point, like you said, you didn't really feel as like inclined to go watch The Prestige, watch it rather. That's pretty much why I put Interstellar as low as it is. I haven't really had the inclination to rewatch it as much as other Nolan flicks, you know.
Okay.
And I'm not saying, again, this is an excellent film. Matthew McConaughey, this was fresh off of his Oscar win.
Yeah.
So good. Anne Hathaway, really, really great. Would have wanted a little more Michael Caine, but I can understand why. We always get Michael Caine in Nolan films. But the thing that really, the visuals and the space stuff, that is just so beautiful to look at. And I really hate that I missed seeing it in theaters, because seeing that on the big screen would have been so cathartic. The thing that really does not work with me about Interstellar, Matt Damon. That character, if that character and that plot line was taken out of it, I think you would have had a better flick.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, because that just feels to me like it's kind of holding the main story back. you know, and
Okay,
it
so
just turns
I'm interested to know what about his storyline doesn't work for you. Just
because
go ahead. Yeah.
so Pixar, I'm gonna have a Pixar ranking coming up. Also,
Yeah.
spoiler alert to all my viewers. And you probably all know who the guest is if you watch my Disney pod. But so Finding Nemo is one of
Mhm.
my favorite Pixar films because there's not really a villain. The antagonist is basically the situation. And then you have Matt Damon coming into Interstellar and you have the human antagonist element. And it's like, I feel like I would have liked this better if it was just Matthew McConaughey and his crew against the elements, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it just turned into a completely different film for me. And I was just like, okay, all right. I mean, you went there, Nolan. It's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
Interstellar is really cool, but I don't hate it. It's just like, I haven't really had the urge to like rewatch it over like say any of the Dark Knight films, which we'll certainly talk
Yeah.
about, or like Inception even. Like
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. That's how I
No,
feel though.
I get that. I think for me, I definitely have it higher on my list.
I could tell
For
by the reaction.
for me, I almost got up and walked away. No, I'm
Oh
kidding.
no.
No. For me, I think it's maybe Nolan's most emotional film,
Yeah.
and I think that's why it stands out to me because it is a space. It's space adventure. It's a it's going into the void. It's saving humankind, but it's also it's a love story, and it's a story about family, and it's a story about growth as humans and sacrifice and selflessness and all that stuff. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes across as one of his more, from a character standpoint, mature films.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah. I agree.
yeah,
It's
yeah. But I
definitely
totally understand the points you're making, and like, dude, obviously,
film is
it,
subjective. You know, this is the amazing thing
exactly.
about it. You know, it's
Yeah,
that's part of why I love doing these. You
yeah,
know,
no,
we're gonna
and
have
I'm
them.
and all opinions on film are, let's talk about it. Unless you say like that the Dark Knight sucks, I might punch you in the throat. Because again, that would just be blatantly wrong.
Looking at you, Christopher Priest. You know, like
He's
I
watch him
can't
see
believe you
this.
said
He's gonna
that.
see this, and he's gonna give us both a call.
He's gonna explain, but I'm like, no, that is wrong. But anyway, yeah, I think this is honestly where these lists are gonna get really, really interesting because I put Interstellar at number 9. I'm assuming it's way deep down on your list, but I
Yeah,
can't wait to see it. But
it's pretty deep down there. We'll
yeah,
see.
for sure. All right, number 8.
8 for me is gonna be Dunkirk.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah. So Dunkirk again. We already talked about it enough, but like I enjoy the film a lot. Um, and it's a very good film in general, and it's a very good study in nonlinear writing, and it's a great as are most Nolan films, and it's a great study in cinematography. Think I think Dunkirk was Hoyt van Hoytema. I think,
Uh,
because I think he's been doing stuff with Nolan
are you
since
talking
Interstellar.
about the DP?
Yeah,
Let me look this up.
I think it's.
I'm
I got
gonna
it too. Let's see.
fact check this.
I think
Let's
it's Hoyt van Hoytema, but I could be wrong. It,
Dunkirk.
it
It
yeah,
is.
it is.
All
Boom.
right, there we go. There it
Who
is.
is great. He also did Tenet, and he did, I believe, Interstellar. Um, but because I think Nolan's, for a long time, Nolan's cinematographer, not gonna remember his name, but he left post Dark Knight Rises to direct, and his directorial debut was produced by Nolan. It was Transcendence with Johnny Depp, which was kind of a train wreck of a movie.
Oh yeah, we're
I
not going to talk about that one.
no,
Oh,
but yeah.
so
So
bad.
Hoyt van Hoytema did the cinematography for Dunkirk, and I think the cinematography is probably the best part of that movie.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously Nolan's use of practical effects, and hey, I want something to happen, I'm actually going to go out and shoot it instead of cheat it, right?
Yeah.
Um, which isn't to say that like CGI or miniatures or whatever are not good, because like look at Titanic, you know, look at Avengers Endgame, right? But I am a sucker for a director finding a way to shoot something for real.
Oh
It
yeah, yeah. The practical
seems
stuff.
impossible. Yeah,
Yeah, all those
yeah,
extras that were
yeah.
for the beach scenes, just
Hmm.
man, just such a vast, gigantic film. And like, let's not forget about how well Dunkirk is edited.
Oh
Also,
yeah,
that is just
yeah,
pristine. Academy Award winner for editing, I think.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Did it? Yeah, I think you might be right. I think it
I'm
also
pretty
might
sure.
have won an Academy Award for sound design.
Yeah, yeah. Sound design, sound editing. It is. Yeah, again, Dunkirk, technical masterpiece for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, Zimmer's score is brilliant. I think it's not just in reference to his work with Nolan. I don't think it's his best, but it is very good. And the thing for me though is that it's a great study in filmmaking, but I think it's a weak war movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
I
it's
would.
sorry, go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say I would rather watch Saving Private Ryan. I'd rather watch even hell Schindler's List, and Schindler's List
Yeah,
is depressing as hell. I'd rather watch that any day of the week over
yeah,
Dunkirk. Like,
and I mean, like also a different war movie, but I'd rather watch Inglorious Bastards.
yes, yeah.
That might be my favorite war film of all time.
Oh well, I'm gonna need 100 Nancy scalps right now.
um,
love
yeah,
that so much.
yeah, but and this sounds a little weird, but I think Dunkirk is a very good movie, but I think it's not a good war movie, and it's just it kind of it's similar to like what I would say about like I think I've said this to you about like Quantum of Solace is a good action movie, but it's a bad Bond movie,
Yeah,
right?
I
And it yeah, and I think if you weren't comparing Dunkirk to like masterpieces that have been made about World War II, it would be a great film. It would be so good. But because it's being compared to Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, Inglourious Bastards, all this stuff, even like you said earlier, Hacksaw Ridge,
yep.
it becomes weaker purely because it doesn't live up to the rest of those films, and because it's not drastically different, which is where I
Yeah,
think you can kind of like. I think Inglourious Bastards is different enough as a war movie because it doesn't feel like the other ones that like it's hard to compare. But I think Dunkirk at heart feels a lot like it wants to be Saving Private Ryan, or it wants to be, Nolan's response to war film, as opposed to like this alternate like crazy reality war film. Um, and I think that's where it kind of loses its step, is it's just directly being compared to other films, which sucks. I
yeah,
mean, like
yeah.
it sounds kind of crappy of me to say like you know um like in comparison to this it's bad, but like it
Yeah,
just
it's Dunkirk again. It's not a bad film, but I
no.
feel like when I watched it for the first time in theaters, it was a really really great experience. But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I went with my brother to see it, and like we both went and saw Hacksaw Ridge. Not even like when was it? I think that was like 8 or 9 months before the release of Dunkirk. So we were
yeah. I
still
think
kind
I
of
think
reeling
Hacksaw
from
Ridge was
that.
early in the early 2017,
Yeah, yeah,
and Dunkirk was
somewhere.
like Christmas, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, But yeah, but Dunkirk definitely solid. I've already given all my thoughts about it, I think.
Yeah.
But my number 8 is actually another film that we previously talked about. This is where I put Insomnia. Um
Okay. Okay.
so again, it definitely feels like a Denis Villeneuve, and I didn't even think about that like before recording this. And like you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
All the fog there, it feels
Yeah.
like just that atmosphere is just so creepy. It really feels like I'm watching like a really shitty dream unfold before me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and
it's got a lot of like kind of Gone Girl feel as well. It's got
yeah, it feels
it's
Fincher almost too.
yeah,
Like Fincher
yeah,
could have done this also.
yeah.
Like,
Which is absolutely a testament to how well the movie is made.
mhm.
But yeah,
And let's also not forget the brilliant leading performances of Al Pacino and Robin Williams. You know,
absolutely.
this is honestly one of Robin Williams' most underrated performances because we're so used to seeing him be the likable one in the room.
Yeah.
But he is just so slimy and gross
And
and
I
just
think people forget that he's in Insomnia as
yeah,
well. I think if you asked most people, if you reminded most people, yeah, Robin Williams is in Insomnia, they'd be like, oh my god, yeah, he is. I
yeah.
don't think it's something that it's a great performance, but it doesn't stick with you as much just because it's not as Robin Williams, you know.
No, of course
Yeah.
not. He's definitely playing against type for sure. And then of course you have Al Pacino who is walking around with that glazed look in his eyes the whole time, like he's a zombie, like he's just
I
been
mean, Al
watching my
Pacino
puppy.
basically plays Al Pacino in that movie.
Yeah. He just plays Michael Corleone, and I mean that's all people saw.
It's true. It's
But
true.
yeah, definitely more subdued performance than The Godfather.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely intense where he needs to be, but when he needs to calm down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah.
golden for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like Insomnia for me is a more rewatchable film than the other three that were on my list.
Okay.
It's an easier film for me to get invested in.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely see your point in that, any director could have done it and it doesn't exactly just feel like a Nolan film.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, there it is. Okay. So here we are, number 7.
Number 7 for me. God,
I'm so,
this is the thing I was worried about. I was worried about just like I feel like so many of my picks are going to be polarizing.
yeah.
But like, hey, I've made a career on being polarizing, so why
Mhm.
stop now?
Right.
No. Number 7 for me is going to be Batman Begins.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
love Batman Begins, but it is absolutely, in my opinion, the weakest of the 3 Dark Knight films.
Wow. Okay.
It's great, it's fantastic, but I think obviously, Dark Knight is a masterpiece, and I think that Dark Knight Rises is inherently more watchable than Batman Begins. Like just rewatchable. And for me, I think Batman Begins feels more like I hate to use the phrase run of the mill because it's not, but in comparison to The Dark Knight, I think it is a much more standard superhero film. I think it doesn't have as I think that it doesn't push the boundaries as much, which is understandable. I mean, it was one of his first major. It was his first like major film,
Yeah.
but and obviously he's not in the time in his career where he can take as many risks. But I think that it's at heart it's just a Batman origin story, and I think that it I love that movie. Like, don't get me wrong.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
I love Batman Begins, and I'm one of the reasons why I love it is just because of what it launched. But I think I think it's the weakest of the 3, and I think from a storytelling perspective, it's weaker than things like Memento, or Inception. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
it's cool.
at least it's not like number 11.
No.
I feel like somebody would
There
shot me
was.
if I did that.
I don't think there was any way any one of the 3 Dark Knights would have been number 11. But
No.
I have Batman Begins a little bit higher. But
Yeah.
I definitely see your point. I'm a sucker for origin stories, man.
Okay.
Like,
I don't love origin stories.
really?
I like to. Yeah, I mean, you've read some of the After Lazarus stuff with Red Hood. Like, I like to throw people in at least in characters that we already know, I like to throw people in kind of in the middle. Like I love the Spider-Man PS4 game for that reason. That like we didn't have to watch
So
Uncle Ben
good.
die. We didn't have to watch all this stuff. It was just Spider-Man has been Spider-Man. He's learned how to be Spider-Man, and then you're gonna grow with him as he does.
Yeah.
And like as far as origin films go, I think Batman Begins is right up there with the best of them.
Oh, for sure.
But I don't love them, and I think that my personal bias against origin films is probably most of the reason that it's low. I mean, it's not. It's like half. It's a little less than halfway down, but
Yeah. Yeah,
still,
it's still a solid film. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I feel
absolutely,
like from number 7 on, all the films that I've chosen here are films that I absolutely love.
yeah,
So,
absolutely,
and this is number
absolutely,
7.
yeah.
So, like, you can tell this is where it gets really, really tough and really
This
interesting.
this was this that pick was where it started getting hard for me.
Yeah. And same for me, my friend,
Yeah,
because moment of truth. Are you ready?
yeah.
Number 7 is Tenet for me. Yeah.
Oh, that hurts me so much.
I know. I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Tenet, you know, I loved it. Seeing
yeah,
it in the theater, I didn't like have the, full experience yet really of going
yeah,
into a theater. Like I saw it at a drive-in. So,
yeah. I
you
was a
know,
little bummed you and I didn't end up getting to see it together. I would have
yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another time though, for sure.
Yeah, dude,
Once
I'm sure you get a re-release post-COVID.
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
sure.
for sure. But this was just such a cool spy espionage film. Like, imagine if Nolan made a James Bond film and he decided to throw his Nolanisms into it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was just so much fun to watch, and just seeing all the technological things come to life about it, it blew my mind. I was sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and my brother was sitting right next to me, and he's like, "Man, that's really cool." And like, admittedly, like he doesn't watch the
Yeah,
Nolan films as much as you and I do, but
mm-hmm.
like
For sure.
when it affects Jake that much, I'm like, it's
Yeah,
good for sure.
yeah,
I mean, and
yeah.
Robert Pattinson also was just so hysterical.
Dude, he is criminally underrated.
Yeah.
Criminally underrated. I mean, I don't know how much of his more recent work you've seen, and I mean,
Oh,
for those of you watching, like if you haven't seen Good Time, if you haven't seen The Lighthouse,
yes.
are just good. Like he's so good. He's so the devil all the time, brilliant
Yep.
in that movie. Like
Yep.
I think, and I mean that whole thing is why I think he's going to be perfect as Bruce Wayne. And
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I don't. Speaking of Tenet and Robert Pattinson, I don't know if you read anything about this, but because he got cast as Bruce Wayne while they were filming Tenet, he was able to like sit down and talk with Christopher Nolan at least a little bit about Batman. And like,
Oh
could
man.
you imagine being the guy who's about to play Batman and for 6 months working with the guy who made the best Batman movie ever?
That is a luxury for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Pattinson is great. I love The Lighthouse. It's one of my favorite horror films. Like,
That movie
recent
is
years for sure.
nuts, dude.
Oh, it's so good. The
Crazy.
Devil All the Time. I also reviewed that on the channel for those of my viewers who have been sticking with me for as long as I've been doing this. Um, Devil All the Time was great.
Yeah.
Pattinson, all I'll say is he's definitely learned from his mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Twilight. But yeah, and John David Washington, who a lot of people are predicting to be the next Mr. Fantastic. I don't think he's going to, but he was so man, that story,
Hmm.
he's just called the protagonist.
Yeah.
And as invested as I was in John David Washington, that should tell you all you really need to know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you didn't even
We're
learn
a
his
guy
real name.
we don't know anything about him other than that he was a CIA agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's yeah, and we don't know his name, we don't know his backstory, we don't know anything, and like he's still a likable and relatable main character.
Yeah. It's very simple and,
Hmm.
like, in nature with this character. But then when
Yeah,
you throw in all the Nolanisms, the
yeah,
bullets shooting backwards and all that, like,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that movie's a
Tell
lot to
me,
unpack.
tell me what didn't do it for you in Tenet.
I mean, I just feel like, I feel like I would rather watch like if I were to rewatch a Nolan film, I just feel like I would pick like one of the other six on my
Yeah,
list over
that's
Tenet.
fair.
I mean,
That's fair.
I'm gonna rewatch Tenet a lot
Oh, yeah.
also. It's just
You and I got to sit down when it's more safe,
safe. More safe to do so. Yeah, you can
or
see we're
even
doing this via
do
Zoom.
a watch party on Amazon or whatever it is, right? But
Yeah.
we got to sit down and watch that movie and then have an in depth conversation afterwards.
Yeah, we'll
Or
unpack that thing a little bit more for sure. It's one of my
dude,
most viewed videos on the channel, also. So thank you to all my viewers for that. But yeah, I love Tenet, and this is again, the list is going to get really, really tough
yeah.
from here on. So number 6.
Number 6 for me is going to be Memento. I know, dude. You and I are, I feel like for the rest of these, you and I are both. We're both gonna just go back and forth with, no.
Oh man. Okay.
And
Okay.
again, this the last 7 for me were so hard to pick, just because they're all so good. And Memento might be Nolan's strongest script,
Yes. Yeah.
but
100%.
as a whole, I think he was still learning a lot about the process. He was working with a smaller budget. Guy Pearce is great in that movie. It's a Carrie Ann Moss is fantastic in that movie. Like it's such a good film. But I think I kind of going back to following, it's just that he learned so much more and became the the director who could do so much more as he goes on. And I think purely because of that, the other films kind of, for me, move ahead. I love Memento, and I mean I've probably seen Memento like 15 times, but
Yeah.
I love that movie, and it's like I said, from a screenwriting standpoint, which obviously is very important to me. It's so nuanced, and it's so like nobody else would think to write a script and then try to pitch that other than no. I cannot even
I
imagine
mean,
at the point where he was in his career when he was making Memento. I cannot imagine trying to pitch that script. Could you
no.
imagine going into a producer's office and be like, "So I wrote this movie, but it's backwards."
Like I can't even begin to unpack it here. I mean, the whole thing's backwards. Like
But you,
that's all it
but
is.
but you look at it, and that story really can only be told backwards, because if
Yeah.
it's not, you know who the antagonists are. You
Right.
know, the. It's just the reason why I think it works only that way is because we are learning information at the same rate. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah.
moving through this story. We're moving through his story with him, and because of that, there are able to be twists. If you tell it the other way, you see that Lenny was that what was no what was the
Yeah, yeah. The protagonist's name is Leonard. Yeah.
yeah, and then what was
Oh God, it was Teddy, I think. Right.
Teddy? That's right.
Theodore
Yeah,
Teddy. Yeah.
yeah. If you move through, if you go, you know chronological order of the scenes, if you watch the film backwards, essentially, it you know that he's not the murderer right away, right? You know that at first glance, and that Carrie Ann Moss's character is manipulative and horrible, and it's like the if you write this movie as you would any other film, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And just the amount of, and I think purely that alone shows Nolan's intellect, right? But I think that because he grew as a director, and because he got more budgets, more trust, more was able to do more things. I think that's why it kind of falls lower for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you there. I have it a little bit higher. I'm
Okay.
sure the viewers could have told by my reaction to it, but
Okay.
like, I mean, all I'll say right now is I agree with everything you just said. This is such a well crafted script, even though it's completely backwards.
Yeah.
Like again,
Yeah.
and it could only really be told backwards because we don't know, if Teddy is actually the antagonist, if it's not backwards. Like, even though we already know the end result of the story chronologically, we're
Yeah.
still rooting for Leonard to figure it out, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's so captivating to just watch that and we really want Leonard to get there,
Yeah.
and he has a really, really, common horrible condition.
hmm
It's like,
Yeah.
so he's got that hurdle to jump over also. So it's,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, it's great. It's great. And I'm sure I'll talk about it more once we get there. But
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm saving some of my thoughts for films that are higher up. I just like just because I want to kind of see.
yeah,
I want to continue to see where you're at and all that stuff. As we
totally. All right. Well, are you ready to talk about a film that's definitely higher up on your list?
Yeah.
The Dark Knight Rises is my number 6.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Batman Begins over this,
Okay.
personally.
Fair. That's fair.
It's I definitely love it for sure. It's
Mhm.
definitely a solid conclusion to the trilogy.
Mhm.
Um, Bane, oh my god! I mean, the decision for Nolan to make Bane a terrorist rather
Yeah.
than just like a Mexican wrestler,
Yeah.
like great choice there.
Yeah.
Also, you gotta love the cameos from all the Pittsburgh Steelers during that football
hmm
scene. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. I was rewatching it. I was like, I forgot that Ben Roethlisberger was in this movie for like 10 seconds. Like,
Well, I love the I mean I love the emotion of the later third of the film.
yeah,
It's
hmm
in a similar way to what I was saying about Interstellar. I think it's more emotional than most Nolan films. Not that most don't have emotion, but that it is more emotional than a lot of them.
yeah.
That's
It's
that,
the
I
end of
think.
an era, essentially. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
got to be
absolutely,
emotional, I'm
exactly.
sure. Like,
Like,
I had a friend that drove all the way down to LA, and that's where he saw The Dark Knight Rises,
dang,
on
dude.
vacation. Yeah, it's nuts. But yeah, I love the film. I love this iteration of Bruce Wayne
Yeah,
in Rises.
yeah,
Pretty much practicing physical distancing over like,
yeah,
between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. He's just a recluse.
yeah.
Um, and then when he has to suit up and be a badass, there he
hmm
is again, like he never left. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I I don't know. Maybe if I'm really, really, really nitpicking, I kind of wish thinking about it that Christian Bale kind of sold the like old tired feel of Bruce
Yeah,
Wayne
I understand
at
that.
that point. Like it just feels almost like the action scenes are a little bit interchangeable with the Dark Knight.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like maybe if he sold it like closer to how Hugh Jackman sold all the scenes in Logan, like
hmm hmm
Rises would have been
Yeah, yeah. Like he was
immensely better.
weaker. He was tired.
Yeah.
And then when it counted, it all came out. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
I understand that.
I don't know, man, but I mean, again, I love it. I love Bane. I love what's her face, Selena Kyle.
Ooh, yeah,
you know, like that. Anne Hathaway was the perfect choice for
yeah.
sure. You
Oh,
get the Alfred one-liners that we all would expect.
yeah, yeah, man.
It's a perfect, satisfying conclusion there.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
again, personally, I like the other two just a little bit more. But hey,
For
I
sure.
can still pop in the Dark Knight Rises and be like, sweet, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Oh,
feel like if I were to pop that in, I'd have to pop in the other two before that.
for sure. Yeah.
So,
No,
but
I get that. You gotta. It's hard to watch those not as a unit. For
yeah,
sure. For
mhm,
sure. Yeah.
yeah. There's one other film that we'll talk about that I can watch as a unit any day of the week and it won't get old. But
Okay. I hope I hope I know what you're talking about. I hope I
I,
know.
trust me, I think you know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure I
Wink,
do.
wink. But yeah, we're at the halfway point already, my friend.
Yeah.
If you guys have made it this far to my viewers, thank you so much. Again, just a reminder, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But getting right down to it, my friend, here we are, number 5.
Number 5 for me is actually going to be The Dark Knight Rises.
There
So,
it is. All right, let's talk more about it.
yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's cinematically speaking, it's not obviously it's not The Dark Knight, right? Because I think The Dark Knight changed it certainly changed the superhero genre, but I think it also changed film in general.
Yeah.
I think it allowed people to relate to the antagonist more, right? Like, I think it's easy to see what the Joker is talking about in that film, right? I think it's easy to look at him and be like, shit, he makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, and and there are parts of that movie where I'm like, what he's doing is, I get why he thinks that he has to, and yeah, he does a lot of stuff that doesn't need to, but I think at the end of the day, like that's what makes the Dark Knight easily the best of the three. I mean, easily. But I do really enjoy the Dark Knight Rises, specifically because of Bane. I think because Bane was so different from any other supervillain that we'd seen. Supervillain. The performance of Marion Cotillard as Talia al Ghul,
Oh,
and kind of
yep. Yeah.
wrapping that around
That.
with the first film with Raish, I love that. And the fact that Liam Neeson does come back for a little bit as the hallucination Raish al Ghul, I love that. But it's, for me, it's purely because it's not the Dark Knight, right? And it's a brilliant film. I think it's better than a lot of superhero films in general.
Oh, for sure. For
and
sure.
it's a better final film for a superhero trilogy than just about anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I hesitate to call like Endgame the end of a trilogy, because it's, if you put Infinity War and Endgame as one thing, which it technically is,
Yeah.
but it's not the end of an era. It's not the end of a story. That's it. There are more, right? But I think it's such a, like you were saying, it's such a satisfying ending. I can watch that film and still be like, heck yeah. If somebody just asked me, hey man, we're watching The Dark Knight Rises, do you want to watch it? Every single time I'll say yes.
Oh, me too.
I don't even have to know you.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could just be a stranger on this,
Dude, if I'm walking down the street and some guy pops out his door and is like, hey man, we're watching Dark Knight Rises, you want to come in? I'll be like, as long as you guys are wearing masks.
Yeah, if you guys are wearing masks, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to have to explain the masks again. But yeah, so I think, yeah, speaking of masks, yeah, a big part of why Rises works for me so much, again, Bane. Some people I've heard argue that Bane is more terrifying than Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, it's honestly
for different reasons, he's as terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it's a fair argument for people to say he's more terrifying, because it feels like a lot more important people rather, are at Bane's mercy. Like Commissioner Gordon. Oh, yeah. Commissioner Gordon is a perfect example. Gary Oldman, again, fantastic, but Gordon wasn't really buying any of the Joker's shit in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, and Bane, I think
Bane had Commissioner Gordon on his knees.
Yeah,
for a lot of it.
Yeah, well, I think the Joker is terrifying because he's very single-minded. He wants a very specific thing and is going to get it no matter what. And he's going to, but a lot of what he does is off the cuff. A lot of it isn't super planned out. He's got his fail safes and he's got all this stuff. But a lot of what makes the Joker terrifying is his impulsiveness. And that he's crazy and he's dangerous. Whereas Bane is very militaristic. He's a general. He's thinking like 8, 9, 10 steps ahead, and that's
he's very strategic.
Exactly, and that's why for the better part of the film, he absolutely gets the best of Bruce, is because there's nothing that Bruce could do that Bane doesn't already see coming.
I can't believe.
I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think that this version of Bane is smarter than the Joker in a lot of ways.
I think that's certainly true. I think that the Joker is definitely smart in in his own way, but I think that at the end of the day, he's not got the same, battlefield mentality that Bane has throughout the whole film. And I think that's what makes him dangerous, is that he knows how to make things happen. He knows how to avoid other things. And like you said, he has so many influential people in Gotham on their knees by the midpoint of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's
Yeah.
terrifying. It's like,
well, and the whole thing about Joker is that it's all chaos. It's like he says, he's an agent of chaos. Like it's all, he wants things to, he wants things to burn, right? And Bane wants order, but he wants order underneath him.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. But Dark Knight Rises, again, excellent film.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to go from an excellent film to a certainly magical film, pun certainly intended, number 5 for me is The Prestige.
Okay.
So, Silas, when I tell you that I love an underrated film, The Prestige is certainly one of them. Because what Nolan is essentially doing here with his 3-act structure, it is a perfect 3-act structure, because Michael Caine explains it perfectly there. Like right in that beginning monologue to that little girl when he pulls out that little finch or whatever the bird is. Like he explains it perfectly. And that's essentially the 3-act structure. So essentially Nolan is creating a 2-hour, 15-minute magic trick. And then when the final twist is revealed and you have The Prestige there, it just made me want to stand up and clap. And I'm like, how the hell did Nolan do that? It's
I totally get that. I absolutely get that.
Oh,
and I think
so good.
As our like we've said multiple times, as are any of the films on this list, regardless of where they are, I think it is a great film. It just, to me, stands out less than others, but I absolutely understand what you're saying, and it really is a one of a kind, like, cinematic experience.
Oh yeah, Hugh Jackman, probably one of his career best for sure. Christian Bale, Christian Bale's so good. Scarlett Johansson, of course. David Bowie. A lot of people forget that David Bowie's in The Prestige also as Tesla, portraying it a lot better than Ethan Hawke, I will say, but that's another story for another time. But I don't want to roast that film right now. That's not what this is. I definitely love The Prestige. I've watched it a handful of times. Never really gets old. The twist, the final twist. Again, spoiler alert: Christian Bale plays a set of twins. If you've never seen The Prestige, I'm sorry, but just I think like there was one character that like brought up that possibility, and then it was like shot down. So it's like it's almost like out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah.
So then when he does execute that twist, and it actually is the fact that Bale is playing a set of twins, it's, again, and you go back on rewatch with that twist in mind, every scene still works with that twist.
Yeah, absolutely.
The film does not cheat at all, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
So, Prestige, certainly in my top 5 for sure. It was, I volleyed that one around for a while for sure, but I was like, you know what? I think The Prestige is a top 5 for me, but all right. Well, we're getting down to the nitty gritty, my friend. Number 4.
All right. I'm going to apologize to everybody already.
Here we go.
It was a hard decision for me, but for personal preference and also considering like rewatchability and all that stuff, The Dark Knight is number 4 for me. I love The Dark Knight, and I do truly think it's probably the best comic book film of all time. But it is so heavy that it's hard to rewatch. Like I love that film, and I will rewatch it. But it's I don't know. And there's so much about it that I love, and I really feel like I need to truly explain myself, otherwise I'm gonna get hate mail.
Nah, my viewers are nice for the most part. So
Somebody's going to be like, how do you make DC fan films? And Dark Knight isn't your favorite Nolan movie.
oh yeah,
No.
unsubscribe right now. Unsubscribe. Enter comment on Zach's video. But, yeah,
No, but and again, I mean, I love The Dark Knight, and I think, like I said, it changed comic book movies. It changed film in general. I think, but it's like I said, I find it harder if I'm gonna rewatch a film. If I'm gonna rewatch a Nolan film, my top three are really the ones that I'm gonna go to more.
yeah,
But I mean, granted, now four is not. I don't think four is a bad place for it. It's not
no,
like it's
not at
not
all.
like I'm not Satan, you know. But
Put the Dark Knight at the bottom. No.
following is number one. No, no, but I do love that movie so much, and you know, again, cinematography is brilliant. The score, I for Hans Zimmer, I think. I mean, I love The Dark Knight, but I think in terms of Nolan, I think Interstellar is probably my favorite of his scores, purely because it's so different.
An outstanding score for
Yeah,
sure.
it's so good. It's so good. And but you know, The Dark Knight is brilliant. It's a you know, from a music standpoint, from a sound editing standpoint, from you know, from a directing, cinematography, all that stuff. It's so good. I think there's really nothing in that movie that I don't like.
Yeah.
I think it's similar for the next three. There's one there's like a bit of one that I'm like, I'm not crazy about, but overall we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love The Dark Knight. I want to make that clear that it is easily my favorite comic book film of all time.
Yeah.
Um,
I believe you. I believe you. Yeah. I'm just like, I certainly have it higher on my list.
yeah, I know,
I mean, I might
I
be
told you.
just a fanboy, you
I
know.
told no, I told you though. I was like, once we got to seven, I was like, you and I are just gonna trade back and forth. When oh
No. Yeah. But, yeah. I'll
yeah,
certainly be more than willing to talk more about my feelings on The Dark Knight once we get to it on my list. But let's talk about Batman Begins for a second, because that's my number 4. Um, as I said earlier, I'm a sucker for origin stories, and this is probably when it was released in 2005. Like at that point, we'd gotten the Spider-Man movies directed by Sam Raimi, 2 of them,
yeah,
you know, because we don't count the third one.
yeah,
We got the X-Men films, we got the Michael Keaton Batmans, we got the Superman ones, of course, but this felt like it was so different from everything else we had ever gotten.
yeah,
I love the samurai feel to it almost.
yeah,
Like, you know, he's going, you know, overseas and training with Ra's al Ghul. Like, and
yeah,
just that revenge factor, like going back, the student versus teacher
yeah,
dynamic is one of my favorite relationships and one of my favorite rivalries. And it's so satisfying to see the student, like, you know, master the master.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
cool to see that. And of course, you have the iconic scene, Christian Bale, best Batman as far as I'm concerned, better than Keaton, better than Affleck. I don't know if Pattinson is going to be better than Bale, but I mean,
We'll see.
we'll see. Certainly better than George Clooney, though.
Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is great, though. I don't know.
I love Val Kilmer, but not necessarily as Batman.
Yeah, it's kind of miscast there, but yeah, Bale, best Batman as far as I'm concerned. Even
Yeah,
though
I think I would agree with that.
a lot of people really distracted by the voice, but with what he was doing, I think it's brilliant,
Yeah,
honestly, because
it makes sense. It was grounded. It was more real. You know, yeah, there's a lot of sci-fi in it, but that aspect of it felt it was intimidation. You know, it felt right. It felt
well, not only intimidation, but it was also like extra camouflage because Bruce Wayne doesn't want to expose himself as the Batman.
yeah,
If he just goes and uses the same normal Christian Bale voice, he just blew his cover. Everybody knows it's
yeah,
Bruce Wayne. So, like,
yeah.
he almost had to
And
do that.
yeah, and I mean, you know, you look at like what Affleck did, what Snyder did with Affleck's Batman in Batman versus Superman is, have the voice modulation, which is what we did with Red Hood in Red Hood versus Nightwing. But I think even then you can kind of tell, like, like if somebody sent you a audio clip of me speaking through a voice modulator, you would be able to tell. You'd be like, yeah, that's Silas, you know. But if somebody sent you a clip of me going, Zack, what are you doing? You probably wouldn't recognize it right off the cuff, right?
Solid
So
impression. Solid impression, by the way.
it makes sense. Yeah, like you're saying, it absolutely tracks that's what he'd do.
Oh
Sure.
yeah. Oh, totally. And I think Nolan also mastered the art of a cliffhanger because
Mm-hmm.
Batman Begins, Commissioner Gordon hands Batman the Joker's business card, and it's just the Joker in a normal
Yeah.
card deck, and it gets everybody all flipped out and excited for the next one. But yeah, Batman Begins, I love it. I can rewatch that film any day of the week. It's so well crafted.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but here we are, top three. Let's do it. Number 3.
All right, number 3 is going to be Inception.
Oh, this will be interesting then.
For a long time, Inception was my favorite Nolan film. And top 3 was very hard for me, partially because I just wasn't sure, but partially because I struggled with top 3 specifically because I didn't want to be too polarizing. And then I decided, no, I got to be honest. I got to be honest. And it is what it is. Like you said, film is subjective.
Yeah.
And I know that I know my top 2 are, there are going to be people that hate either one of them, whatever it is. But like, it's just who I am as a filmmaker. I think connects with these 3 the most. Overall. But yeah, for a long time, Inception was my favorite Nolan film. And the main reason it's not above my number 2 is because dialogue in that film is about 80% exposition. But it has to.
Yeah.
But it has to be. Like, I get that, and I absolutely understand that, like, you cannot tell that story without explaining it. It's so convoluted that you
complex.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you would not understand, or it would be a lot harder to understand if there weren't as much exposition. But I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character only exists to tell the audience, and Ellen Page's character only exists to be the audience.
Yeah.
Like, you think about that, like, she's really her only purpose is, the only reason why she's a newcomer brought in is so that they can teach her the ropes so that we understand the world of the film, which maybe should bother me a little more than it does. But like, I think the reason why it's even past a very strong story, but a not quite as strong script, it is, visually speaking, I mean, I think the spinning hallway fight scene is maybe one of the most memorable things I've ever seen in a movie. The practical paradox staircase
Yeah.
is also insane. I mean, cinematography from that movie, the practical effects, the set design, all of it is so ridiculously convoluted, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, that movie definitely inspired me. I think the reason it's so high is because it inspired me as a filmmaker more than most films have. Well, like, when I first saw it in theaters, I was what, like 15, and like, it really did. I think without that film, I wouldn't have really, like, been solid in, like, this is what I want to do. Like, there have been other films before and after that have done that too, but I think that was really the movie that was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there for sure. Inception, oh man, such a trip for sure.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the effects groundbreaking. And that's another thing about Nolan. I feel like he draws a lot, he's a big influence on, not just us as, as artists, but even in like Marvel's case, Doctor Strange, that is
yeah.
a perfect example. It took a lot of influence from not only Batman Begins, but also Inception with all those
Yep.
groundbreaking effects. Some people
Absolutely.
compare Doctor Strange to the Matrix, but I'm like, nah, that's more Inception. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's, yeah, like effects wise, they're pretty much interchangeable, but
Yeah.
Inception did it first. Um, but it's such a well crafted film, and I have it just a tad bit higher, so I can go into more detail about that in just a
Yeah.
minute. I'm sure. My number three is Memento.
Okay. 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 Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah, so this was like right around the time when I was becoming a huge film buff.
Yeah.
That was the one movie that my dad told me I needed to see. And he
Okay.
didn't exactly tell me a whole bunch about it, or like, what was going on really. He didn't even tell me it was backwards, which
Okay.
is like a cruel thing to do, thinking about it in perspective. I'm like, so what?
I.
I go to him the next day after I watch it, and I'm like, so
Mhm.
what was that? Like,
Yeah.
what did I just watch? And he's like, oh, the whole film's backwards. And I'm like,
I. I love that, and I think Memento is one of those films. There's a handful of films that I wish, because of how avant-garde they are and different, that I wish I could see for the first time again.
yeah,
Memento is one of those. I think Fight Club is one for me that I wish I could see for the first time.
love Fight Club.
Um, I love Fight Club. And I think I saw Fight Club after I'd already had the ending spoiled for me, because I mean I didn't see it until, I don't know, a while, obviously a while
Yeah,
after, but a long while, like many years. But yeah, I wish that I could go back and see Memento for the first time again, just because it's such a unique experience.
yeah.
And
Um,
you're not gonna get an experience like it in any other film.
Yeah, those opening credits also really sets the tone. So I think those are some of my like that and Deadpool, I think are my top two favorite opening credits of all time for
Right.
very different
Yeah,
reasons, of course.
yeah, yeah,
Deadpool is just ridiculous, super meta, like,
yeah,
um,
yeah. Absolutely.
but Memento, the opening credits is just a Polaroid and you're shaking it and it's just backwards.
Yeah,
And that's all
yeah,
it really tells you. And I'm like, okay, Nolan is really drawing me in here. What's going on? Like, and what ensues is just
yeah,
cinematic. Again, I could not
yeah.
imagine being in Nolan's shoes pitching that to Warner Brothers execs. Like,
Exactly,
it would have been
exactly.
something else. And one last thing before we move on to number two that I got to mention: Guy Pearce does not get enough credit for how phenomenal he
So
was
good.
in
He's so
Memento.
good. Yeah,
He should have won all the Oscars. He should have won all the Golden Globes because
yeah,
he really I did not see Guy Pearce. I saw Leonard there. And
yeah.
that's like one of the biggest compliments that I can give another actor is like when I
Yeah.
don't see
No,
that
absolutely,
person.
absolutely. Yeah,
So, man, yeah. Gotta love Memento. Man,
yeah.
that's
No,
one I will
it's a good
rewatch again and again.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah. Oh,
All
we're
right,
getting
top
down
two.
to it. Top two. Number two.
So, okay, two for me. This is kind of what I was saying with the last one. Two, one and two for me. I considered flipping them purely because I wanted my top two to be more palatable, at least a little more palatable. But I decided, like I said, gotta be honest, gotta be, truthful. Oh, okay.
Oh, you're good. You're
Yeah,
good.
gotta be truthful. All that stuff. Uh, okay, cool, cool, cool. So number two for me is going to be Interstellar. Um,
Wow. There.
I know the implications of that are harsh,
Wow.
and I am worried particularly about my top choice being the worst one of mine of all of them.
No
But
way.
but Interstellar, like I said a little bit before, I think from a writing standpoint, I think Interstellar, from a character standpoint, Interstellar might be Nolan's best. I think from overall as a screenplay, Memento is definitely the best screenplay as a whole. But I think from a character standpoint, you've got Murph, who is just, I mean, this brilliant character from when she's, a little girl to when she's, when Jessica Chastain, right, comes in and
Yeah, I think so.
yeah,
Yeah, Jessica Chastain. Yeah.
yeah, and and then you've got, you've got all of these conflicting characters that all kind of want different things, but they have to end up in the same place together. And I mean, dude, the end of that movie never ceases to make me cry.
Yeah, it
I,
is.
I, when Murph says like no parent should see her child die, dude, that killed me. It wrecked me, man. And I mean, like I said, it really is more than anything else, I believe, a love story and a story about sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's Anne Hathaway's character's love for, I'm not going to remember the guy's name, but the guy, the one who they found, who went to one of the planets, whether it's McConaughey's love for his daughter, all of this stuff, it's just, at heart, the movie is about love and sacrifice. And I think that that's such an emotional theme and such a relatable theme.
Yeah.
More than like Inception, right? Like
Totally.
I can't. Like I love the characters in Inception. I love Eames and I love Cobb, but I cannot relate to either of them because they're just kind of, it is what it is. But I love the themes throughout Interstellar, and like I said, I think it's one of Hans Zimmer's best scores of all time.
Oh,
and I
for
think
sure.
it's best work with Nolan for sure. But yeah, man, and it's just, overall, it's a beautiful film. It might be a little too long, but it's
Yeah.
a beautiful movie.
Yeah, that was one of the things when I watched Interstellar the first time. I'm like, this is really kind of dragging out. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe if they shaved off like maybe 10 minutes of it, like maybe it would have made
yeah,
it a little
yeah.
more
Because
enjoyable
I think it's
experience.
like 246 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a marathon for sure.
Let me
There's
see.
some movies that need to be 3 hours, like Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, it is 2 hours and 49 minutes.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, honestly, I mean, everything you just said is absolutely right on the nose. I realize I put Interstellar way lower on the list, but like,
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
that's not to say I hate Interstellar because I don't. I think it's a beautifully crafted film.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, thinking about it, think Matthew McConaughey should have at least been nominated for
Dude,
Best Actor
absolutely.
for second
Absolutely.
year in a row. I don't think he should have won. I'm still like 2014 Academy Awards were so messed up, except for when they gave it to Birdman for Best Picture.
Yeah,
But
Michael Keaton won that year, right?
no, Best Actor was actually won by Eddie Redmayne for playing Stephen Hawking.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I
it was.
hated The Theory of Everything.
I didn't hate The Theory of Everything. I think it's definitely a solidly acted film. It
Yeah,
the
I think from an acting standpoint, it was just so boring to me. I was like, I can't do it. I don't know.
I mean, me personally, like, I'm really fascinated by the story of Stephen Hawking, but
for sure.
the performance itself, not better than Michael Keaton, not better than Benedict Cumberbatch in Imitation Game, for sure. Oh man, Alan Turing, Benedict Cumberbatch, that is a match made in heaven.
And I don't think it was better than McConaughey's.
Not better than McConaughey's at all. Personally, I think that Jake Gyllenhaal should have won that year for Nightcrawler. Like,
Ooh, okay.
but yeah, McConaughey should have at least been nominated for that because the emotional range that he has on display there is just so perfect.
For sure.
You could tell that this character was just going through so much trauma because of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And to your point, that is exactly what this film is about. Like,
for sure.
And it kills me inside. Like, thinking about that ending now, I'm just like, man, but
it's brutal, man.
But yeah. Okay, so my number two. Okay, so I volleyed around these two for a long time. I had such a hard decision, but just like you, I had to go with my gut on this one. I
Yeah.
put Inception at number two.
Okay. Okay.
This was, again, I feel like the reason why these two films are at the top, and you could probably guess what our number ones are by process of elimination to the viewers, but I
Very
went
different
with,
movies.
yeah,
Very different.
I went with the two films that I had the most fun watching
Yeah. Yeah.
of
I
the
mean, that
bunch.
essentially that's what I did too. I think for me, my number two is less about like pure enjoyment and more about like uh, just overall experience in the film. But continue, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say Inception, groundbreaking for
Yeah.
sure. That hallway, this is a film that's all about dreams, right? And I think Nolan plays around a lot with that imagery and that whole
Yeah.
idea of, being woken up. I love the fact that all that action stuff is taking place in their heads
Yeah.
in deep sleep, and they're
Yeah.
falling from a car in slow motion is just so it's
Oh
Nolan
yeah.
messes with your head, man. There's
Yes,
so
he
much
does.
going on. Like,
Yes, he does.
and
That's absolutely true.
Leonardo DiCaprio also doesn't get enough credit for that
So
performance. I
so
mean,
good.
granted, I don't think he's as good as he was in Wolf of Wall Street, where I think he should have won the Oscar.
You think
Um,
so? Even though McConaughey,
yeah, yeah.
I think McConaughey deserved it that year,
In
but hey,
Dallas Buyers Club, yeah, that's definitely
yeah,
a great comeback performance. But I
yeah,
think, honestly, if DiCaprio won for Wall Street and McConaughey won for Interstellar, I think that's a fair trade off.
yeah,
And
yeah,
just don't give it to Eddie Redmayne. I'm sorry, Eddie Redmayne, but your performance was not better than Benedict Cumberbatch even. But okay, but Inception is just. I mean, it's a dream within a dream within a dream, and then you could just go on and on. How many layers deep can you go? And I think Nolan was just toying with our heads there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that was the first review I did for the playlist, and that might have been a mistake because of how trippy it was. I was
yeah.
like,
I feel that. I feel that.
man, oh man. And granted, it wasn't my first time watching it either. I've seen it a
No,
handful of times, but
yeah,
like it still confuses the hell out of me. And
yeah,
I'm just sitting there like, okay, what layer are we in right now? Let's see. But yeah, just definitely very fun for sure.
yeah.
But as fun as all those other films are, it's all come down to this. By process of elimination, number one time.
So by process of elimination, number one for me is going to be Tenet.
There it is.
And
Why?
I talked to I specifically talked to CJ about this when I told him that I was doing this. And I was like, dude, I did the flip flop thing where I was like, I think I have to say Interstellar because specifically because so many people haven't seen Tenet yet that I think that this pick doesn't make sense it won't make sense to a lot of people. Um, for me, Zach, you know me, you know the kind of stuff that I write. I
Yeah.
love espionage. I like one of my I want to write espionage all the time. Everything that I write has a little bit of not everything, but a lot of stuff that I write has that in it. Even after Lazarus, even all this stuff like when we hint that Red Hood used to potentially do wet work for the CIA. It's like all this stuff kind of is in the worlds that I write. So when I knew that Nolan was doing an espionage film in a science fiction world, I was so stoked. And the fact is that it feels like it feels unlike even not even the science fiction aspects of it. Just the espionage aspects of Tenet feel unlike any other espionage film that I
Yeah.
had seen. The depiction of the way that the CIA works, the depiction of the way that this secret organization works. It's all fresh, but it feels real. I mean, one of my favorite recurring parts of that film is we live in a twilight world and there are no friends at dusk.
Yeah.
It's so weird and Nolan-esque to have that phrase be like the code, but it's so good and it makes sense. And it also kind of alludes to later parts in the film. And then on top of that, I love the performances. The performance that I didn't love, I mean, he was great, but I think of the four main characters, honestly, I think that um, Kenneth Branagh was the weakest of the four.
Yeah, yeah, I can.
Specifically for the you don't admire, you don't what is it, you don't
Oh man, I can't think
something
of any Tenet quotes right now.
you don't something about you don't something a tiger, and then he goes, you admire a tiger until it turns on you and whatever.
Yeah,
I've
something like
actually
that.
been reading the screenplay as well. I got the
Oh
screenplay
wow,
on paperback, and I've been reading the screenplay. It's so interesting to read it
nice.
apart from
Is
the
it a is it a thick is it a thick book?
yeah. So it has the screenplay, and then it also has storyboards
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's so cool.
from the first inverted fight scene,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think the ending scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's storyboards from both versions of the inverted fight with it with spoilers, but with himself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it has.
Unbelievable that like I
Yeah,
like as soon as I figured out like I watched that scene once in that
mhm,
hallway and I know exactly which one you're talking about.
yeah,
But like I was sitting there watching it in my car and I was like, this is really cool. Like I wish that guy would unmask, and he did
yeah,
later and he ended up fighting himself. And I'm
yeah, dude.
like,
I love that,
what
and
the
I think
heck?
the reason why it's so high for me is because not only because I love espionage, spy films, all that stuff. I mean, I grew up watching Bond. I grew, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
it's also, it's visually speaking, there I have never seen anything like it. Inception did that as well, but I think Tenet for me brought it farther.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Visually, I mean that the last sequence is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The inverted fight, I want to understand how they choreographed that. I don't get it. I
Man,
really truly don't.
and that's honestly, in regards to the technicals, that's something that's probably the highest compliment like a director or a cinematographer can get. It makes me think a lot of Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, the guy
Yeah.
that did Birdman, but I'm actually thinking of The Revenant a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
There
Yeah.
were so many shots in The Revenant, and I know he used pretty much, he wanted to use all natural lighting for that film, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. But there were lots of shots within that film where I was like, how in the hell did he do that?
Dude, the opening of The Revenant is like that. And
Oh,
then
so
the
good.
actual bear attack is very similar as well.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
dude, that yeah. And I think for me, Tenet is, I mean, mind-bogglingly different.
Yeah.
It just it's and in actually in a similar way to, but the opposite of what I was kind of saying with Dunkirk, where Dunkirk is a good movie, but it's not a great war movie because of what it's up next to. I think Tenet is not only a great movie, but it's also a great spy movie because it's so much different than everything and than any other
Yeah.
spy film made. Um, and yeah, and I think um, Robert Pattinson and what is her name?
What?
Elizabeth Debicki.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
That was it.
I think the two of them are so good. I mean, I would say in the for the four main characters, I think in terms of just emotional weight of performance and just believable performance. I think it's probably Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, John David Washington, and then Kenneth Branagh. But all of them are very good. But I think
Yeah.
Pattinson and Debicki both stand out more.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, man, yeah. Tenet is really the film that like solidified me, solidified my thought that Pattinson is going to be a fantastic Batman.
Yes. Oh yeah. I agree. Pattinson's the man.
Yeah,
Um.
and I mean the fact that Nolan did that, the plane crash practically, like he
Yeah.
actually
Oh
blew up
man,
the
the plane crash.
747. That's so crazy, dude. That film,
Oh.
so good. I think I saw it like four times because
Yeah.
so many people, like, I mean, you and I were originally going to see it together, but so many people were like, "Hey, Silas, I want to see this movie with you." I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll
yeah,
set it up. Yeah, for sure.
definitely,
It's
definitely.
yeah, I
Yeah,
because I'm waiting around for the Blu-ray at this point. It's only a couple
for sure.
weeks, so like
Yeah, it's like three
um
weeks.
I mean, I've got a big enough TV also. I mean, I think I'll enjoy it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I've only seen it once. So
Hmm,
like
hmm.
I think as I watch Tenet more and more, I'm just going to love it
Yeah,
a lot more.
yeah. For me, I'm more appreciative. I was more appreciative of the film every time I saw it, and I'm so glad that I went out and saw it multiple
Yeah.
times in theaters. Just
Just
'cause I
to
think it's a
support
movie.
it, number 1, because,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
and Nolan's got like, especially with the times we're living in right now, he's got a lot of cojones to release it, when
Dude, yeah.
it
And
is right now.
I saw this review that was like, Tenet is Nolan's worst performing film. Yeah, it's because half the world is closed.
Yeah.
Uh, and also, it made money that's on par with any action movie that's not a Nolan film.
Yep. If
Like
like
330 million or something like that. Like,
if you hold Tenet's box office budget up to like a film that was out in, say, like, let's just say the year 2005, the year Batman Begins came out, you could hold up that box office return to any one of those films, and Tenet would still crack that top 10.
yeah,
Granted, inflation is very different these days,
for sure,
but
for sure.
like if you
But yeah,
just look at the numbers, like if you
mhm,
just look at the number, like Tenet will hold up compared to
yeah,
those. So I don't
yeah. And
think
I
it's
think
a box office failure.
no, absolutely not. I think the fact that we're in a pandemic and it's still performed better than most movies that aren't Nolan films is ridiculous. I mean, it's crazy, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
wild for sure. But yeah, Tenet, I can't honestly argue with that logistics. Just why that's your number 1. That's just
mm-hmm.
it's a great film. My number 1, some in my opinion, is the pinnacle. It's The Dark Knight.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh
I figured going in that was gonna be your number one.
yeah, I'm
I know how much you love that film. Like and yeah,
yeah, I'm
rightfully so. Rightfully so, absolutely.
yeah, Zach, you're so predictable. Unsubscribe. But yeah, I mean, I don't care. It's my list. Like my review for this. My buddy Roberto, shout out to him. He was on for that review. And we talked about a couple other topics in the theater world. But that review of The Dark Knight was over 30 minutes. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that was such a fun conversation that I had.
yeah.
Because that film just it came out in 2008, 12
Mm-hmm.
years old at this point, and people are still talking about The Dark Knight as if it's like the Gone with the Wind, or like the
Yeah,
I don't know, like the Gone
yeah.
with the Wind, or the Casablanca,
Citizen
or
Kane,
the
yeah,
Citizen Kane of superhero films. There you go.
yeah.
But even though I don't think Citizen Kane is the greatest movie ever made, but
No,
anyway.
I was literally having a conversation earlier today about how I hate when people are like Citizen Kane is the best movie ever made. It changed film. It sucks.
Well, Citizen Kane doesn't suck, but I'll tell you what. Here's
Okay,
my
that's
thing. There is a huge plot hole in Citizen Kane, which,
yeah.
spoiler
Hmm.
alert, the word Rosebud was his final word. Nobody else was in the house with him. So how could they know that was his last word?
Well, and like
Like,
here's what I'll say. Orson Welles is a filmmaker, brilliant. He changed film
oh,
with
totally.
with specifically with Citizen Kane, and I get that that's why it's regarded as the best film ever made. I think it's probably the most influential film ever made, just because it changed so much. But it's so boring. It's
Yeah.
I cinematically speaking, from a technical standpoint, from an influential standpoint, I get that it's so good because it's important. It's such an important film. I think it's necessary to watch,
Mm,
specifically if you're any sort of filmmaker. But like, it's not. It's so boring. Whenever that's one of my worst pet peeves. Whenever a film student is like, "Yeah, my favorite movie is Citizen Kane." No, it's not.
yeah, that's a lie.
It
But
is not your favorite movie.
it's, yeah, no, I personally don't mind Citizen Kane. I really like it, but it's not like my all-time favorite. But
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Dark Knight, when it comes to superhero genre, like the superhero genre is one of my favorites, and I love Batman Begins. So to see Nolan come out with a film that was even better This is
Yeah.
probably one of the best sequels ever made, personally.
It might even be the best sequel ever made.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for me to choose between this one and Empire Strikes Back, and I realize how much of a geek
Okay,
I
yeah,
sound like.
that's fair. That's fair.
You know, like
Definitely.
I mean, it's between Dark Knight and Empire Strikes Back for best sequel, but
Yeah.
hey, that's who I am. I'm a geek.
No, that's fair. That's fair,
But
dude. You're not wrong.
but I mean, just everything about the Dark Knight just works.
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious thing is Heath Ledger is the Joker.
Uh-huh.
Everybody was looking at, where is it? Hold on. I'm just gonna pull this out for perspective. You see this guy right here? 10 Things I Hate About You. They were looking at the poster and they were like, this dweeb is gonna be the Joker. And then he goes in and he proves all of them wrong. And
Yeah,
he
he's got the
wins.
only posthumous Oscar.
Yep. He won the Oscar after his unfortunate passing. Rest in peace, Heath Ledger. But like, just everything, so quotable. Also, so quotable the whole way through. And
he's easily the most memorable villain in all of comic books. You know, it's just.
And then
Thanos is great, but Joker is.
This Joker is the best one. I'm sorry, Nicholson, and I'm not sorry, Leto, because that's, Suicide Squad.
Speaking of Leto, I am excited for what Snyder and Terrio will have done.
Oh yeah,
in the HBO Max Justice League release, but
I'm excited to see that too. I'm interested to see where that goes. But this was the holy grail of Joker performances because he
100%.
had the right amount of unhinged, but he's not like a circus, like over the top circus performer like Jack Nicholson was. And maybe that's what Tim Burton was going for in the original, but it just
I think that was certainly true, and I think for the film that he's in, I think Nicholson is perfect. But but I think that Leto's performance as Joker transcends the movie itself. Like I think it's not just.
You mean Ledger?
What did I say? Did I say Leto? No, I meant Ledger. Sorry.
I'm like,
sorry. Not
no,
Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger's performance as Joker transcends the film itself. I think that it's about more than him being a Batman villain, whereas Nicholson is very much the Batman villain in this specific Batman film, and Leto is just like a pimp. I don't even know what he's supposed to be.
He's a pimp that's going out with Harley Quinn.
He's like a two-bit gangster at the end of the day. It's like that's it.
I almost said Shaggy 2 Dope there for a second. That's not what I was going for. But like, yeah, that's not the only villain in this movie. Even you got Two-Face in here.
Yeah.
Like, and again, like this is such like a captivating arc, even though he's not the primary villain. Like you still get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Like he's a very corrupt politician, of course, like very realistic. And then you see him burn his face off. Like, I mean, most terrifying coin flip I've ever seen. Not, I mean, maybe actually thinking about it, No Country for Old Men, I think has the more terrifying coin flip, but.
Okay.
Still,
that's fair. That's fair.
It's, I mean, the coin flip was a gimmick for Two-Face, and it doesn't feel like a gimmick with Anton, but it's, definitely captivating performances all around. The cinematography, the action, the moral dilemma that Batman is facing is
100%,
just, oh, man. And the Joker, I can't talk about Heath Ledger's performance enough.
Dude, he's so good.
Y'all have heard it all at this point about that guy, but I miss him more and more every time I rewatch it. And that's another thing. The reason why this is number one, I've rewatched The Dark Knight so many times.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I could watch that film on its own as a unit without having to watch the other two. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I could just pick one off the shelf and I'd be like, oh, sweet, I'll go watch The Dark Knight, even though I've already seen it like 69 times, which is nice. But But
Nice.
nice.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, that's
I
our
do.
man. How long have we been recording? Oh, 2 hours. Wow. Yeah, this was my friend. This was always a fun conversation that we get to have.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're gonna have to do this again for sure.
100%. We might.
Um,
Have you done a Tarantino one yet?
no,
You
no, I
might
have
have to do
not.
Tarantino. I
Yeah,
think we might have to do Tarantino.
yeah. I think that's next on the docket for us for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep on the lookout. Silas is definitely going to be coming back for sure. To my viewers, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you guys have been watching this long, thank you all so much. Make sure, once again, final reminder, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell as hard as you possibly can. So that way, anytime some new fun content hits the channel, you guys can be the first ones to know. Hit that like button also on your way out. That'd be wonderful. And also go subscribe to Silas's channel, Mass Upset Productions. Look out
I
for
think
me.
it's pictures now. It's pictures now.
Mass Upset
Mass
Pictures.
Upset
Okay.
Pictures.
Yeah. Well, regardless, link will be down in the
Yeah.
description box below. Check out Red Hood versus Nightwing, and definitely check out my stupid face as the Riddler once that comes around.
Yeah. I'm probably like a week before Christmas will probably be about the release for No Old Soldiers. So definitely look out for that. I'm stoked for everybody to see you as Riddler, my man. Like honestly.
Happy late birthday once again to me.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
yeah, all right. Yeah, that just about does it, my friends. With all that being said, back talk commence.